Thank you. All right. So I'm JJ Alcoholic. Sobriety date's July 29th, 2007. I have a sponsor. I am a sponsor. I have a home group. My home group meets on Wednesdays on Zoom, where we go over Bill W.'s letter, Emotional Sobriety, and the speaker kind of comes from some current experience or how it relates to them. If anyone's interested, I'll put it in later. And I guess the format's kind of wherever God takes us. So before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, my father, who's in the program in the fellowship, I came to visit him. I think it was around Christmas time. And you ever been qualified without knowing you're being qualified? Because that happened to me, and I didn't know that until hindsight. So came up, had a visit, and kind of was doing my thing. You know, I was able to drink, and he was just watching me as I drank, and he's like, "You think you had enough?" And I'm like, No, I'm just getting started." And that could have been an ominous warning. I don't know. And then a few months later, I was invited to come up and see him get married. And I get off the plane and I'm still loaded. And the whole time I'm here, you know, thinking about getting back to Florida to drink and do what I do. And but I had seen something. I wasn't sure what it was, but I get back to Florida and continued on doing what I was doing for about another month. And something wasn't right. I knew something was up. The way I was living, I thought was normal. I started to, I guess, realize it wasn't normal. Just by the example, you know, we say it's attraction, not promotion. And he didn't promote nothing. I just seen a different way of living that I wasn't used to seeing. So I drank for that rest of that month, and you know, it wasn't really my last drunk, but it was the one that got me to a point, stumbling down the road, and a thought comes to me of what are you doing? And it wasn't my thought. It was just something that came to me. And I ended up calling a buddy of mine. He came pick me up. He said, "I'm not bringing you back to my house because you're not ruining our night. We're having a good time." And he brought me home, and I called my dad, and he's like, "So you're ready to put the plug in the jug," kind of deal. And that's what the question was, you know, for that whole month. And I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm ready." I didn't know what I was ready for, but he said, "Well, if that's your choice, then you need to find your own way up here. I'm not doing it for you." And God provided some opportunities. I could make a little money. Had one box of, like, a Home Depot box of stuff, and shipped that up and got a plane ticket and came on up and got loaded the night before. And came up here, got off the plane, and didn't know what I was really in for. And went to a couple meetings, you know, right out of the chute with them, and went in there. People were nice, but I walked in with my head down and a chip on my shoulder. And they went around the room. Everyone said, you know, so and so alcoholic. They got to me and I said, JJ alcoholic. And I didn't even know what that meant. You know, I quacked like a duck because everyone else did. And I wanted to fit in. And, you know, the first few months, it pretty much white knuckled it. I did everything they said not to do. And I was holding on. No one really came up to me to explain to me the condition of alcoholism or what I was up against, or if, you know, I was even up against it. I just said I was alcoholic and I was welcomed, and I took up a seat. I latched onto a guy who I knew, which was one of my father's sponsees. And I actually worked with him during summer vacation, so it was easy to latch on to him. He gave me the book. He said, read the first 164 pages, which I only did when I was pissed off at the girlfriend back in Florida because I'm trying to manage a relationship, you know, and I'm reading, you know, the doctor's opinion and stuff on my own, and like I'm relating and identifying with some stuff. little bit with Bill. Obviously was comparing myself and, not really looking at the way he thought, felt, and drank. And then, like any good alcoholic thinking, my mind starts telling me we need to find someone we can relate to, and someone that's younger and someone that's closer. So I start looking for someone closer to my age, someone probably just as sick as me, and hook up with him and a couple other young guys. And he's giving me printouts off the internet of step 1, 2, and 3, kind of fill out these general questions and get to the 4th step. And the thing is like that thick. And I look at the first question and it's, have you ever been molested? And I put the paper down and that was the end of that. And in the meantime, that kid was kind of working through the big book with another gentleman. And I kind of sat in and, just didn't participate, just sat in on it. And that kid ended up going back out drinking. And I had gotten some news back from Florida about some family, and I was pretty upset and pissed off. And I asked this guy, can you take me through the steps? And he's like, I really don't want to, but if you want to, come to my house now and we'll get started. And that's what we did. And that's started the journey. And again, I'm still trying to manage a relationship down in Florida. I got 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I have had no alcohol, so my mind is all over the place. It's thinking about the future, the past, not even staying in the moment. And I start going through the book with this guy, and he's reading line by line. And I'm identifying with the words we're reading in the book, but then he would follow up with his own experience. And I'm matching my experience to his experience. And I start to learn, what it means to be alcoholic. We start talking about physical craving, what's that look like when I put alcohol in my system? And I can look back at my history, and my experience. And it's like, when I started, could I stop? Just by putting alcohol in my system. And I couldn't stop. Once I had one, I was off and running. And I used to think I just had a high tolerance for alcohol. And that wasn't the case. I had a physical allergy that I was not aware of. I would start drinking. Obviously, over time, there was progression. And it got to the point to when I started working and I started drinking, there was no stopping. I always came up with the great plans and ideas, of, well, I got to drink on a full stomach, or I won't drink a gallon of vodka, I'll drink 2/5 of Hennessy. I won't hang out with these people, I'll hang out with those people. Constantly trying to manage and control the drinking, and I had no idea I had no control once I started. So I'm looking back at my experience, and I remember times I would go into the movie theater with 2 tall boys in my pants, and then I'm in the movie theater, crack it open halfway through the movie. I got to leave, and I go out the fire exit door to go to the store, get more, walk back through the front door, show my ticket, and watch the rest of the movie. And I thought it was just being cool, but I physically had to go get more. I couldn't even just sit there and watch the movie. And that happened with everything I did. We'd be out fishing, cooler, full, having a good time, run out of beer, fishing sucked. Pack it up, let's go. There were days where we'd go to the beach, and have a good day without drinking. And then once I started drinking, the whole day went to hell. And blowing relationships up and friendships and etc. So I'm looking back at my experience from this guy's experience. And then we roll into, once, I stop, I can't stay stopped. And I'm looking at my experience there. And I remember, there was quite a few times where I would isolate in my room all day long after a long run, and have that guilt and remorse in the morning and be like, I am not drinking today. And I would isolate myself in the room, and my running buddy would come, after he got out of work, and he pushed one my way. We're just going to have a 6-pack, you can have, and that's it. Didn't think twice. I'd have the 1, have the 2, have the 3. We're done with the 6. Let's go get an 18. Now I'm doing some outside substances as well. And off we go again. And for me, I could not stop. He would pass out usually, or he'd go home and I'd have to keep going. I'd be searching in my mom's closet for her Puerto Rican rum that she'd hide under her clothes, and I'm in there with a flashlight crawling around, looking for a bottle. And then, I mean, go all night. I'm calling people 3, 4 in the morning. Hey, what are you doing? I'm sleeping. Well, take me to the store. You know, um, just once I started, I could not stop. And when I stopped, I couldn't stay stopped. And there were times, I truly meant I did not want to drink today. And by 12 o'clock, I was drinking without any thought, didn't think about the consequences, not the running with, cops, the fights, the guilt, remorse I woke up with, any of that. And, so I'm starting to identify and learn what it means to be alcoholic. And I fully concede to my innermost self that I wasn't like other people. I wasn't like my friends, Tony, and some other friends I hung out with, who could just drink. They can party hard, but they can stop and stay stopped if needed. And I had conceded to my innermost self and smashed all those reservations. If my mom got sick, or if this happened and that happened, all these reservations my mind would create on how I would drink again. And then going through the second step, my willing to believe was enough, but I also had a spiritual experience, I guess, kind of. I'm 1 foot in the relationship, 1 foot out. It's not working. I got all this fear driving me through my whole day. I don't even know what the hell's going on. It's just internally, I'm not right. And, fear driving me to do things I wouldn't even do. I had prayed and said, this time I prayed and said, God, let it be what you want it to be, instead of God, make this work, make this work, make this work. And 7 o'clock the next morning, I got an answer, and she called and said, I can't do this anymore. And I jumped in with both feet. I was willing to believe there was something bigger than me that would take me from the point I was at to something different. I didn't know what the hell that would look like. I just, gave it a shot. What I have to lose. And then we went over the third step. I didn't truly understand the third step. It was explained to me. Maybe it was explained and I just missed it. And, I ended up doing a third step prayer, thinking that was my third step. And I would say it in the morning, say it at night. And I thought I was doing the deal. I went into a 4-step, not really knowing what I was looking for, but I sure as hell knew who I was pissed at. And I just wrote down and end up doing a 5th step, thinking it's a confession, kind of just sitting there reading off the paper. The guy's nodding, and he goes, is there anything else? And there's something at the tip of my tongue, but I'm too shameful of what about it. There's just too much shame around it. So I just held it in. And he's like, you sure there's nothing else? And it wanted to come out, but it would not come out. And he gave me 6 and 7 instructions, and he left. I did probably 10 minutes out of the hour he told me to do. And did the 7 deadly sins, asked God to remove them, made an 8-step list, made about 3 amends. I think one was my dad, my mom, and one other family member, the easy ones. And didn't do too much 10-step stuff. 11-step consisted of a 3rd step and 7-step prayer in the morning, and God help me, and sometimes at night. And I'm out there trying to carry a message that I thought I had. And I'm sitting down with people, picking people up, trying to read through the book. No one's sticking around. And I was doing this for about 3 years, and not, I thought I was doing AA, and I was restless, irritable, discontent, not knowing what was going on. I'm doing pretty much everything they're telling me to do. I'm going to the meetings. I'm trying to sponsor, doing service commitments. And I had asked the guy that was working with me, I'm like, is this it? Because if this is it, it ain't working. And I end up at the Wilson house. I think it was the second time I went. It was like 3 years or so. And I'm up there, and there was a couple from Texas that showed up, and this person laid out the 3rd step. And at that moment, I had a whole new outlook on the third step and what it truly meant. That selfishness, self-centeredness was the root of my problem. And that's why I was so restless, irritable, discontent. And I could see how I was still trying to manage. It wasn't just the third step problem, it was still a second step problem and the second half of the first step. Unmanageability was explained, the consequences of my drinking. I was still trying to manage the show and manage every aspect of my life. So yeah, I'm gonna be everything on page 52. I got trouble with personal relationships, can't control my emotional nature, prey to misery and depression, can't really make a living, full of fear, unhappy, feeling uselessness, yeah, because I'm still trying to manage. And I didn't know it was current agnosticism at the time, like I do today, but I was still trying to play God and set things in the roles I wanted people to play. Walking around with a clipboard, with a list of expectations and demands. And I didn't know that until you didn't do what I thought you needed to be doing. So from that weekend retreat, I have a full understanding of this third step. I recommitted. The first sponsor I had, he was there with me. I ended up writing a whole new inventory that night, set up a fifth step a week later, and I got it all out. Everything I got, that one piece of shame. And all that man said was, oh, that's not too bad, and he shared some of his experience with me. And I left that place with the fifth step promise coming true. I'll never forget it. I left there with a freedom, a wholeness. I felt light, and I'm driving an hour to my apartment, and the sun's setting, and I was thanking God from the bottom of my heart the whole way there. And I went home and I did the full hour, like it said, timed. In the last 5 minutes, I had one thing pop up in my mind, gave him a call, said, we went over it quick, and had a little different experience with 6 and 7. And I went out and made all my amends, starting with the hardest one first, which was a work truck that I had crashed, and I had lied to him about it. That some kid on an ATV cut me off, but really I was out there drinking and driving like a jackass and dumped it into a canal. And I was willing to do whatever it was going to take. And when I got off the phone with that man, I cried like a little girl. Again, another level of freedom. And went ahead and made amends to my father again, my mother, my grandparents, and down the list I went and got current. And really rejuvenated. And I started getting out there, trying to build the fellowship I crave. I'm out there on that soapbox, and wanting to beat people over the head with the big book, and thinking I'm somebody and I got the answer, and this is what you need to do. You're killing people with your oral tradition shit, and this is just making people uncomfortable, and at the same time not realizing it. It's still not a good look, for AA as a whole. And my job is just to try to carry the message from my experience, and everything that all the experiences I've had, there's a learning portion to it. So 3 years in, I have this new experience, and it's happened again at 5, 7, 9, and 11 years. I always thought, like, by doing this process, everything was going to just be, coasting, and that hasn't been the case for me. I heard a speaker because of Zoom that I would have never got to hear, and he tells this story about, I believe it was his sponsor going to his sponsor, and he had him draw a line in the sand, and he told him to walk the straight line, and he would take 3 steps, and he would push him off the line, and he'd come back to the line, and then he'd go on the other side and push him again, and he'd come back to the line, and he would do that all the way down, and then he tells him to look back at the line, and he said, you think the spiritual program or the spiritual progress is the line, but the spiritual progress and the path is when you're off the line and you come back to the line. And that's my experience. I always thought I had to be on the beam. It's when I come off the beam and get back to the beam, working the process, I have those experiences. So going through understanding the third, making all those amends, thinking, I'm working with a ton of people, and I have another low spot, and I get untreated again, stop doing the disciplines, and it started with stop working with people, stop calling a sponsor. The 11th step goes out the window. I'm not doing 10s. I don't want to be making amends for my actions. So I'm not really willing to look at 6 and 7. I don't want to discuss it with nobody. And I'm not looking at a 4th step inventory because I don't want to make amends and admit I'm wrong. So I'm really running the show again. And I don't believe, in God, because I am God. And now I'm back to the second half of step 1, the unmanageability, because I'm back to managing. And my mind, the alcoholic mind, that's the problem. That is alcoholism to me. It's feeding me all this crap. Look at you, you're 23, you bought a house, look how good you're doing, you make good money, you're a provider, you're setting up a great life. That little blow up with the, at work wasn't too bad. They'll get over it. Same with the girl, and on and on and on. And I'm just relying on self, don't even know it. And it's just dragging me. At the same time, it's telling me I'm doing great. And hit another low spot. And during this time, I go on all kinds of sprees, rage sprees, buying sprees, material sprees. I'll buy this motorcycle, that motorcycle. I'm looking at trucks. I'm going to buy that. And that's all the distractions. That's how I know when I'm untreated, because the first thing I do when I wake up, instead of praying, I'm checking the bank account, not once, but twice. And I'm going to check the credit card account. And then I'm checking my emails, and then I'm checking Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, back to the bank account. And my mind is just all over the place with chatter. And I end up in another low spot. And, I used to go to retreats and roundups to try to get the punch in the arm, to get back and juiced up, I'm going to get spiritual again. And, that's not how it works. What I'm looking to do is get some relief so I can continue on the way I'm living, so I don't have the consequences of my actions. Right. So I'm just looking for ease and comfort. So I have this false dependency on AA and everything in it, that if I do this, I'll get this and I'm going to feel okay. Yet I don't want to let go of what I'm doing over here. I'm still trying to manage. And it came to a point to where, I end up the same woman from Texas at a retreat, and she's like, gives me instructions because she tells I'm hurting and I'm dying. And God sends this person pretty much every time I've been in this spot. She's the messenger. And she gave me specific instructions. I followed through. I ended up doing another inventory, and a lot of it revolving around the relationship. And you talk about when they ask that question of, is it possible? And there's things I never even considered in those resentments, and things I was holding on with expectations towards the person I supposedly said I loved. And, within 3 minutes, this woman had me bawling my eyes out on how selfish and self-centered I was. And, another level to 6 and 7, to these things that became objectionable to me. And I had to go and make those amends, and it took it even farther into the family aspect, because I had these delusions and resentments towards, my father's wife. And I had to go in and make those amends to her and take the bit in the teeth and ask that question of, have I harmed you in any other way? And just sat there and took it, no fight, nothing to defend. And I worked towards, making those things right. Things are rolling pretty good. We end up, getting a good meeting going that was based out of my father's basement, that started with like 7 to 9 people. Next thing you know, we have 40 people crammed in this little basement trying to go through the book line by line. And, just a little pocket of enthusiasm. And we ended up going to this church, and just a lot of people, coming, and it was cool. And that alcoholic ego, man, I start thinking that I'm somebody. People are sending, their sponsees my way, like, go have a new experience. He'll help you have a new experience, and I thought there was levels to this. I hold all these speakers up on, as my heroes. And I wanted to be like them. And I thought, there's levels to this. Like, there is no levels. We're all at the same table. There is no, I start at the bottom and now I'm some circuit speaker and, I'm going to be held up in this high regard. We all sit at the same table. And I get a piece of humble pie, I guess. There was a young people's meeting. I start becoming in a competition with them and, pretty much poisoning the well. So-and-so doesn't continue on with the work, doesn't finish here, doesn't do this, and I start pushing, my alcoholism starts pulling me out of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the meeting closes, I end up backing away. And I'm pretty much self-sponsoring again for, I don't know, 2 years or so. And I think everything's well. I'm making a ton of money. I'm providing. You don't know how great I am, in the family aspect. Always willing to, if someone needs a hand, with wanting to go through the work. I don't know how good, or what I had to offer at the time. But I think that was God's little breadcrumbs trying to pull me back in. I don't really know. And then my behavior pushes, others to do some behavior. And 3 years ago, I find out some information, and luckily I was at the Jersey Shore Roundup, and I was a whole lot closer to drinking than I thought, because in my mind, drinking ain't an option. And I find out this information, and that resentment is, right front and center. Fear, that self-reliance got my ass as far as it got, but it wasn't going to be enough. And again, luckily I was there, had something to eat, kind of really just being driven in my mind, anger, fear, all this stuff going. I walk into the lobby of this hotel. Guess who's there? That woman from Texas. And it's like a movie, me and her, that's it. And she's beelining right for me. And she could see it all over my face. What's going on, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I ain't good. I'm really not good. And she gave me some instruction, and every single speaker, God spoke through and broke me right down the center. And the year before that, I had an experience, a third step experience, but it wasn't enough to carry me through, because I was looking for relief. And the minute I got home, I was back in the reality and living life. And this time, I was all in again. Like, I did a third step exercise from 60 to 63. This gentleman told me for every sentence, write down how you're showing up. And that's what I did. And it was very repetitive. And I felt like crap, but I also had an awakening to my behaviors. And I ended up doing a deeper 4-step, just the current stuff, which was pretty much at home, and some other things at work. And I did a multiple 5th step, got some eye-opening behaviors, which I saw, and some that were pointed out. And that's the thing with 6 and 7. Like, I always thought, like, I'd have this list and God take it away, and then I would fight with the defect when it would show up. But again, I don't know what's good and bad. How can I decide what's good and bad? It depends upon the application. Like, I got good work ethic, but when I'm just being driven by greed and money, it's not good. But having good work ethic, and wanting to put out a good job, it's good in that area. Who am I to say what's good and bad? Every experience I've had, I could say it's a bad experience, yet it serves a good purpose when I'm sitting down with a man, and it happens every time. you go through an experience, you have an experience, and then next thing you know, some guy calls you out of nowhere, like, hey, I'm dying, this is going on. And it's like, well, cool, I just went through it and this is what I did. So how can I decide or dictate, what's good and bad? And I've become, awakened to these behaviors, and yet they're objectionable, and I can be awake to them. I don't have to fight with them. you know, Out of this last experience, I know I wasn't showing up the man I wanted to be, or I could be, or the father that I could be. And I carried a lot of guilt and shame in that. And, over the course of the last, 3 years, really staying accountable, getting hooked up with a real good group of guys, and, doing the evening reviews and consistency has been big, because I made so many amends to my wife. It's become an apology and she don't care. And I asked, can we sit down? And she goes, what's the point? Nothing changes. And it's like, bam, right in the heart. And this time I was guided and directed, and it was, why don't you sit down and hold hands and ask God to come in and do a prayer, and see, whatever you want. And that's what we did. And there was something different. We held hands, we invited God into it. She said some things that, I said some things in the prayer, and then we went into it. And this time I actually listened and I wrote it down and I took it to God. And that's what I've been growing to. And our relationship today is totally different than it's ever been. It's been awesome, and I don't always show up the father that I want to be. I lose my patience, and it's a hell of a lot better than it was. It's, things that I've sat there. I mean, having to make an amends to a 7-year-old is pretty humbling, I guess. Thinking I don't need to. And it's really not my words, it's more my actions, to do the things that he asks, instead of feeling that it's inconvenient. That level of self I can have of, this is what I want to do when I come home, and all he wants to do is spend time, and it's just inconvenient to me. And instead of, all right, I'm aware of it, now let me take the action on it and take that, half hour and light this kid's life up, and be the father I'm supposed to be. It's not about what I want and when I want to do it. But these are the growing experiences that I'm, going through. I could always have the time and the effort for a new guy, and I would never bring that into my home life. And that's not what this is about. It says in all my principles, bring these principles in all my affairs, my occupations, my relationships, everywhere. I can have patience, tolerance, and kindness to a guy, who I want to help get sober, but why can't I take that in other areas? And these are the things I've been awakened to, and the experiences that I've been having. Today's, been pretty good. Again, it's all due from some consistency, being in this email chain with this group of guys to where I can be honest, because I'm not the greatest at 10-step calls, but I can put it in this, evening review and get it out there to about 12 to 15 other gentlemen. And, they've called and reached out at times. I love Zoom because it's a little more convenient when I got 2 jobs, 2 kids, and in between, running around. But I've also had the opportunity to still build a fellowship, on this platform, with people in Canada, and be able to celebrate. A couple weeks ago, a gentleman who came on that meeting, and we all celebrated. He had a year the day of the meeting, and we all got to sing happy birthday to him. And he had a cupcake, and you could just feel the power. And those people were in the Philippines who just got whacked by that huge typhoon. And the thing that survived was his big book. And the biggest thing they wanted to do was get internet connection to be back on that meeting. And they finally did it. And we celebrated that year with them. But to feel that power of the fellowship, I was always rigid and technical about the book. And now it's just more about experience. I don't need to promote nothing. All I have is my experience, and either someone can relate and identify, and cool, rock on, we'll trudge this road to happy destiny together, and it ain't going to be easy. That's why it's trudging. We're going to get knocked down, pick back up, and we'll just keep going together. And recently I was asked, to attend a men's retreat and asked to speak, and I wasn't sure if I should have been offended or honored because it was called Outright Mental Defectives. And I was in the right place because we're all screwed up. But it was an awesome retreat, and it was much needed, and I didn't even know it. AA's given me a ton of stuff. It's given me the opportunity, to work in a career, and the opportunity to get a promotion. And I get transferred recently within the last month to this new job. And I knew going into it, there's some unknowns and there's some fears, and I'm taking it to God. And, the first couple of days I'm asking God to walk in there with me, and things are going good, but that mind just keeps on going. And, the fears building, the self-reliance wants to come out, and all these defaults, because the defects of character, or whatever we want to call them, it just wants to come and defend me. And that's what I'm used to. This fear wants to come and defend me. The self-reliance wants to come and defend me, so I don't feel hurt, threatened, or interfered with. And, I could feel it building, and I'm bringing that frustration home. And the mind wants to start putting the demands and expectations on that are closest to me, because that's what I can control and manage, I think. And I'm cleaning this stuff up, and I end up at this men's retreat, and it wasn't like any other retreat I've been to. I would always go, you'd hear the intellectual stuff, you'd pick some stuff up, people going through the big book, and this was more hands-on, interactive. And next thing you know, we're writing inventory as a group of men, and then we're sharing it with strangers we don't even know. And of course, mine's all job-based, and it was all needed. The truth, came out, and we did some other stuff, and some other fist step exercises and things like that, and some more things were revealed. And since then, I've been pretty free. I was pretty happy to get this new job, but pissed at my old job, because they told me about the job, to take the job, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna stick it to you. And then I'm pissed because they didn't counter offer. Like, what the hell? So I got all these delusional resentments, and I was able to, sit down with some folks and get some truth on it, and been free of that. And I could be honest, today was a crazy day. This is the first time I sat down all day, and there's calamity all over the place. But being here, I'm feeling pretty good. And I think I'm running out of steam, so that's it.